In 1563, Michel de Montaigne experienced a kind of suffering that very few humans have or ever will. It started after his best friend, Etienne de la Boétie, tragically died from the plague. The second contributing event would follow in hearing of his father's death from a kidney stone attack in 1568. And then the third and final strike upon his psyche came shortly after. It was in getting the news of his little brother's passing away from an agonizing hemorrhage, an event caused by getting hit in the head with a tennis ball. Consequently, the idea and reality of death continued to overwhelm his thoughts, which also had their share in his struggle with severe bouts of depression. He wrote of it saying, "How can we possibly rid ourselves of the thought of death and of the idea that at every moment it is gripping us by the throat?" And so, seeing it as impossible to go on the same, he left his job for early retirement from a position in public service as a diplomat and retreated into solitude at the age of 38. But it was a personal retreat that Montaigne resolved would be a long one, escaping to spend over 10 years in his family's estate, or more specifically, in a 1,500-volume library built into a fortification tower, a place he called the Citadel. It was there that he etched into a particular shelf the purpose that would occupy the next decade of his life, a dedication to tranquility, freedom, and leisure. Now, we can see that this pursuit of Montaigne's proved to be a success, and one that still impacts society to this day. In his isolation, not only would he overcome his fear of death, but would invent a writing style that billions after him would use for themselves, what is commonly known as the essay. And as if that wasn't enough, he would also articulate in essay a profound wisdom for how to approach life itself, a wisdom that also affected his deepest passion, his love of writing, which in turn made him into one of the most famous writers without ever intending to be one. Trying not to try. In his citadel, still suffering from a melancholy induced by the thought of death, Montaigne sought to alleviate it through ancient Greek wisdom, a Hellenistic buffet that consisted of many readings from various Stoics. But specifically, it was through his reading of Pyrrho, the founder of the ancient skeptic school, that Montaigne found a special peace. It was in understanding that certainty is futile, as our perception of anything can only be incomplete, a mere pixel of understanding that is in part in making up the full picture. And so he treated his writings and ideas the same way we treat clothes. We try them on, we see how they fit, and then throw them away when they've outlived their use. Montaigne put it this way: "I find myself obliged neither to take responsibility for them, my writings, ideas, nor to keep to them. I can drop them if it suits me. I can return to my doubts and insecurity, and to my overriding form of thought, ignorance." This humble attitude toward knowledge would also be the next thing he would give a symbolic representation to in his citadel, painted on a ceiling beam with the words, "Que sais-je?" Then came the essay, a term that Montaigne coined that came from the French verb to try, which makes a lot of sense when you think about it. The reason he would call it this, because it resonated with his attitude of humility toward knowledge. So to try, to be content with your own ignorance and just try. In this way, for Montaigne, trying was synonymous with writing. Trying was the original heart of the essay. And so in Montaigne's essaying, or in his trying, he was then led to an epiphany, a new discovery of purpose. He declared, "My profession, my art, is to live." This also came with the realization that his previous way of life wasn't his own. Rather, it was dictated by those who he surrounded himself with. But all of that was about to change. His new focus was now on perfecting the art of living. And so what did he do after that, right? That's a natural question to ask when you hear of someone committing their life to the art of living. But actually, it's sort of the wrong question. To Michel de Montaigne, the art of living meant finding joy in our trying, whatever that trying may be applied to. Or to say it another way, the art of life is a process of intuition, of uncovering, of contemplating and finding pleasure in the journey, which can all be summed up in a statement given by the entrepreneur Alex Hormozi. He said,
"Winning the game of life is playing the game of life."
And so if you like that better, just substitute Montaigne's trying for Alex's playing, and you get the same thing. It's find a way to enjoy this life because it's the only one you'll ever get, or at least it's the only one you're guaranteed to have. And so for Montaigne, in optimizing for play in the game of life, I'm opting for Alex's term here, this naturally meant doing more of what he loved, which was writing. He wrote, "I have put all my energies into being a writer of books. My sole purpose is there, my life's calling. It is my only occupation, my only mission." Montaigne would go on to write 107 essays in total and cover a wide range of topics, from politics, virtue, and death, to education, poetry, and friendship. There was also the added subjects of horse riding, getting drunk, and dieting. But let's not forget that the secret sauce to this wide range of writings was in his non-committal attitude toward being correct. You can recall the influence of the Stoic Pyrrho. And so this humility that Montaigne learned, it freed him from the chains of perfectionism, ego, and self-doubt. And perhaps most importantly, it freed him from the fear of failure. Case in point, he didn't have a specified goal that he wished to identify himself with. He wasn't trying to be this hotshot writer that people looked up to. The dude just wrote for the pleasure of writing, of putting down thought to paper. That's simply the process he enjoyed. Now, what's more interesting about this is that he didn't even see himself as that great of a writer, and he was pretty candid about that, even to the point of self-depreciation. As Dr. Stephen Gambardella wrote of him, he admits that he writes badly, that he is careless, that his grammar is poor, that he has a poor memory, and is often incapable of expressing what he really wishes to write. He uses uncited quotations extensively to make up for when the point cannot quite be expressed by his own hand. I include this because I think it adds to the genuineness of Montaigne's approach of just doing what you love to do in order to win the game of life, as he clearly didn't think that he was that great of a writer, which was his self-professed life's calling. So I think that makes him a little bit more qualified to speak on the art of life, on the validity of finding fulfillment in doing what you sincerely love to do. Oh, and here's a happy ending. He also got over his fear of death. One of his essays has him saying, "I want death to find me planting my cabbages, not concerned about it, or still less, my unfinished garden." Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one.